What if the thoughts you never speak, the emotions you ignore, the fears you bury in silence are actually shaping the world around you, not symbolically, not metaphorically, literally, through a field of energy that listens and responds? Science calls it quantum entanglement, but the truth is you've been broadcasting your reality all along. There is a hidden mechanism inside you, operating with mathematical precision but vibrating on an emotional frequency. It doesn't wait for your permission to act. It doesn't need your words. It is your subconscious, and it's not asleep. It's a living transmitter, a resonant field. Everything you've believed, every feeling you've held on to, every childhood moment that left an emotional mark, they're all active right now, sending out signals into the field of reality. And the universe? It's not neutral. It listens to what you're emitting even when you're silent. You've probably tried to manifest before. You've visualized, journaled, affirmed, and maybe it worked for a while, but something always pulled you back. An invisible undertow, a subtle dissonance, almost like reality itself was resisting. But what if reality wasn't resisting? What if it was simply responding to a deeper signal, a frequency buried inside you? Not your thoughts, but your vibration. Imagine you're a radio tower, always on, always transmitting. But you're not broadcasting music, you're transmitting your beliefs, your emotions, your traumas, and the universe tunes in like a perfectly synchronized receiver. The signal you emit, whether fear, doubt, hope, or trust, becomes the blueprint for what shows up in your life. Most people try to change their lives by changing their actions. They hustle, plan, push harder, but they're still broadcasting on the same frequency. Still tuned to fear, to lack, to unworthiness, even while reaching for more. That's why change doesn't stick, because the signal hasn't changed. In this video, we are not just going to talk about how to think differently. We're going to explore the scientific reality behind why your subconscious broadcasts a vibrational signature and how to consciously rewrite it. We'll decode what quantum entanglement really is and how it applies to your emotions, how your subconscious emits electromagnetic frequencies that attract outcomes, why positive thinking alone isn't enough if the core signal remains unchanged, and how to shift your default vibration to a new frequency, the one aligned with the life you're meant to live. Because this isn't about achieving a goal, it's about finally breaking the loop, that invisible cycle of almost getting there, but not quite, feeling ready, but falling back. The truth is, you're not stuck. You're just tuned in to an outdated signal, and today you'll learn how to change the station. Before we continue, take a breath, feel into your own field, not what you want, not what you say, but what you're actually transmitting. If something inside you whispers, "This is true," stay with us, because the deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. If this resonates so far, subscribe to the channel. This space is for those who are ready to manifest through frequency, not force. In the next segment, we'll explore what energy actually is, not from a mystical lens, but from the observable, measurable reality of quantum physics. Because once you understand that everything is energy, including your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs, you'll start to see why your life looks the way it does. And more importantly, you'll see how to change it from the source. Everything in existence is vibrating. What we perceive as solid, stable, or still is actually a field of motion held in coherence, from the particles in your body to the planets. In orbit, nothing is truly static. Even in silence, there is vibration. Even in darkness, there is movement. And that movement carries information. That movement is energy. But what is energy truly? It's not just electricity or light. Energy is the foundation of all form. It's the silent architecture of existence, and you are made of it. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, all are manifestations of energy vibrating at specific frequencies. The difference between a joyful memory and a painful one isn't just in the story, it's in the frequency it activates inside you. Einstein said it clearly: everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get it. That wasn't a metaphor. That was physics. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are vibrationally resonating with. Because in the universe, energy doesn't lie. This is not a new idea. Ancient mystics spoke of this truth long before science caught up. But now, quantum physics is confirming what sages once intuited. Everything is connected by a field of invisible energy, and this field responds to frequency, not to logic. That's why affirmations spoken without emotional alignment feel hollow. That's why goals set from fear rarely come true, because the field listens to your essence, not your effort. Let's go deeper. Imagine the universe as a vast ocean. You are a drop in it, but you're also the wave, the current, the ripple. What you feel internally sends vibrations into that ocean. Gratitude, love, courage, they create waves that uplift. Fear, resentment, shame, they generate turbulence. The ocean responds to your state, and your state is the sum of your vibration. Science now shows that even the smallest units of reality, particles, don't behave like fixed things. They're more like patterns of probability, fields of possibility that respond to observation. The double-slit experiment revealed that light acts differently when it's being observed. That simple act of attention changed the outcome. The conclusion: consciousness affects matter. You are not separate from this equation. You are an observer. You are the field. You are the experiment and the influence. Your energy is shaping your world in every moment. This isn't fantasy. It's measurable, it's repeatable, and it's happening whether you're aware of it or not. So when you wake up in the morning and feel a certain way, heavy, hopeful, rushed, peaceful, you are already broadcasting. You're tuning into a frequency and syncing with experiences that match it. Not because life is random, but because life is resonant. Let's bring it closer. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift? Have you ever met someone whose presence felt calming or intense before they even spoke? That's not intuition alone. That's resonance. You are feeling their field, and your field is always being felt too. Now, most of this happens beneath your awareness. Your body, your heart, your electromagnetic field, they are constantly receiving and transmitting. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the human heart emits a field several feet beyond the body, carrying emotional information. That field changes depending on your inner state. When you feel gratitude, it becomes coherent, harmonious. When you feel stress or fear, it becomes chaotic, and that pattern influences your physiology, your environment, and even others around you. So your emotions are not just internal experiences, they are energetic signatures. And your thoughts? They're not confined to your mind. They're frequencies, pulses of energy moving into the field. You are not thinking in isolation. You are contributing to a collective vibration. This is why becoming aware of your state is so essential. Not to judge it, but to understand that it's the frequency you're using to create. The field doesn't respond to your masks. It responds to your core. And here's the twist. Most of what you emit isn't coming from your conscious mind. It's coming from your subconscious, the part of you that operates quietly beneath the surface, running old programs, emotional loops, beliefs you may have forgotten. That's the part we'll begin exploring next, because if everything is energy and your vibration is your signature, then your subconscious is your default frequency. And to change your life, you don't need to push harder, you need to tune differently. Imagine two particles, created together in the same event, split apart and sent to opposite ends of the universe. One is here, the other billions of light years away. Now imagine that when you change the state of one, the other changes instantly. No delay, no signal, just instant response. That's not science fiction. That's quantum entanglement. It's one of the most mysterious and proven phenomena in physics, and it tells us something extraordinary, that separation is an illusion. At the quantum level, things are not divided, they're intertwined, and that entanglement doesn't fade with distance or time. It exists in a dimension deeper than space. Now let's take that one step further. If subatomic particles, like the building blocks of everything, are entangled, and if you are made of those particles, then what does that say about you? About your thoughts? Your emotions? Your relationships? What if you are not just entangled with other people, but with reality itself? You may have heard this before as a spiritual concept. We are all connected. But what if it's more than poetry? What if it's physics? What if your thoughts aren't just personal? What if your emotions don't stay inside you? What if the vibrations you send out actually entangle with the field of life around you? There are no empty spaces. Between you and the rest of the world is a field, subtle, intelligent, alive, and the vibrations you emit enter this field. They don't disappear, they influence, they resonate, they entangle. This is not philosophy. In 1982, physicist Alain Aspect conducted an experiment in France that proved quantum entanglement is real. Two photons, light particles, were created together, then separated. When one was altered, the other changed instantly, even when no possible signal could travel between them. This shattered the classical idea of local reality. It proved that particles can remain invisibly connected across any distance. And you're not made of anything different. Your brain, your heart, your cells, they all contain particles entangled with others. But it doesn't stop at the physical. Your consciousness participates too, because consciousness, according to many scientists, is not confined to the brain. It exists within and around the field. It's part of the entanglement. This explains synchronicity, why you think of someone and they call, Why you feel something is about to happen, and it does. It's not coincidence, it's resonance. It's your field interacting with the larger field through vibration, emotion, intention, and the most powerful transmitter in that field is your subconscious. That's the frequency that's always on, not the one you perform with, the one you truly carry. You may affirm abundance, but if your subconscious is still entangled with scarcity, your field will reflect it. You may dream of love, but if your subconscious is entangled with rejection, your reality will mirror that frequency back to you. Think of entanglement like invisible strings. The thoughts you charge with emotion, especially repetitive ones, bind themselves to the fabric of the universe. The more emotion, the stronger the string, and once that connection is made, it becomes part of the vibration you send and receive. You're not just a participant in this system, you are an influencer. Every thought, every feeling, they're signals. They don't vanish when you stop thinking. They ripple, they echo, and eventually, they return. This is why awareness is not enough. You have to go deeper. You have to feel what you're tied to, vibrationally. What pain still anchors you? What belief still sends its signal through your field? This is where change begins, not in thought alone, but in frequency. Because if particles across galaxies can respond to each other without words, without logic, without time, then so can you. So can your reality. And so does your energy. Every second, with every breath. The question is, what are you entangled with right now? Is it a past version of yourself? A limiting belief passed down like a genetic code? A fear that's not even yours? You can't change what you're entangled with by cutting it off. You shift it by changing your own frequency. You rewrite the connection. You retune the resonance. And the most powerful way to do that is through your subconscious. Because your subconscious is the vibrational blueprint that the universe responds to. It's your original signal, and it's the one we're about to explore. There is a part of you that never stops listening, never stops feeling, never stops broadcasting, even when you sleep, even when you say nothing. This part of you is active. It's not your conscious mind, it's deeper, older, more loyal to what you've survived than to what you desire. It is your subconscious. We've been taught to see the subconscious as a storage room, a place where memories are archived and patterns are stored. But that view is incomplete. The subconscious is not passive. It is dynamic, magnetic, creative. It's not a vault. It's an antenna, and it's transmitting your deepest truths into the quantum field every second. You don't manifest what you think you deserve. You manifest what your subconscious believes is safe. If abundance feels unsafe, you'll sabotage it. If love feels dangerous, you'll repel it. If joy feels unfamiliar, you'll dim it. Not because you don't want these things, but because your subconscious is protecting you with outdated instructions. Instructions you didn't write. Most of them were installed before you could speak, from tone of voice, to patterns in your caregivers, to unspoken emotions you absorbed as truth. Your subconscious was wide open then, receiving, registering, replicating. Because as a child, you didn't need logic, you needed belonging, and belonging came through frequency. Science shows us that between birth and age 7, the brain operates predominantly in theta waves, the same frequency accessed in deep meditation or hypnosis. In that state, everything is imprint. You don't filter, you absorb. Words become laws. Energy becomes identity. If you grew up around stress, your subconscious may associate chaos with normalcy. If love was inconsistent, it may equate connection with instability. If you felt unseen, it may encode invisibility as safety. These programs didn't begin with you, but they live in you. And they're not just psychological, they're vibrational. The subconscious emits frequencies. That's not a metaphor. The body, especially the heart, generates an electromagnetic field that changes based on your emotional state. The HeartMath Institute has measured this field extending several feet around the body, interacting with the environment and even other people's fields. So when you carry a subconscious program of fear or scarcity, you're not just thinking negatively, you are resonating that frequency into the field, and the field responds, matching, mirroring, multiplying what you send. This is why positive thinking often fails, because if the surface thought is I am abundant, but the subconscious feeling is I don't feel safe with abundance, the deeper frequency wins. Every time, the subconscious is always stronger than willpower, because it's not a thought, it's a signal. It's not trying to ruin your life, it's trying to keep you alive based on what it once learned. But here's the key, what was once safe is no longer relevant. You are no longer in that childhood room. You are not that version of you anymore. The world has changed, but unless you change your signal, the field won't know. Think of the subconscious like an old playlist that never got updated. It keeps playing the same songs even though your taste has evolved, and those songs shape your experience. People you meet, opportunities you attract, emotions you recycle, but you can update the playlist. You can rewrite the pattern, not through force, but through frequency. First, through awareness, noticing what shows up repeatedly, not blaming, not resisting, just observing the echo. Second, through emotional honesty, feeling what you've avoided, because emotion is the ink the subconscious writes with. Third, through repetition, not of words, but of states, feeling safety, practicing joy, grounding abundance, until the field no longer questions it. Because once the subconscious accepts a new frequency as familiar, it no longer resists it. It joins it, it amplifies it. And this is how transformation becomes sustainable, not through willpower, but through realignment. You don't need to convince the universe. You just need to convince your own frequency. And that means working with the subconscious, not against it. Listening to it, loving it, reteaching it what's true now, not what was true then. The subconscious isn't your enemy. It's your protector, your transmitter, your silent architect. It builds the house you live in, not from blueprints, but from emotional memory. And once you learn how to speak its language, through energy, repetition, coherence, you become not just a conscious creator, but a vibrational one. And that's when reality begins to shift, not by chance, but by design. If the subconscious is your transmitter, then childhood is the moment it was tuned, not just through words, but through energy, through glances, through tension in the room, through emotions no one ever spoke out loud, but you felt anyway. This is where the signal was first formed. You didn't need to understand language to absorb frequency. You felt it in the silence, after conflict, in the coldness of withheld affection, in the rush of approval that only came when you performed. Your nervous system remembers, your body remembers, even when your mind has forgotten. Every "not now, be quiet, you're too much and that's not for us" landed not just in your ears but in your field. And the subconscious didn't judge it. It recorded it. It marked it as familiar, and familiar equals safe, even if it hurts. This is the paradox of the subconscious. It prefers what's familiar to what's ideal. It's not aligned with your dreams. It's aligned with your history. And unless you rewrite that history energetically, it will continue to project the past into your future. Imagine trying to manifest abundance with a subconscious that equates money with conflict, or calling in love when love was once tied to abandonment, or creating freedom when freedom once meant being alone. You may affirm, visualize, meditate, but if the signal is still tied to fear, fear will shape the outcome. This is not a flaw, it's a defense, a survival strategy. The subconscious is always trying to keep you safe, but it often confuses survival with restriction, especially when it learned safety in environments that were emotionally limited. That's why inner child work isn't just psychological. It's vibrational. You're not just healing memories, you're recalibrating the frequency they left behind, the echoes they still send out through your field. Every time you react strongly to something in the present, chances are it's touching a frequency from the past, a hidden string, a familiar pattern, a vibration that hasn't been cleared. And the truth is, these patterns are not random. They repeat because the subconscious is trying to resolve them, trying to make sense of them, trying to finally feel safe in what once felt unsafe. That's why you're drawn to the same dynamics, the same types of people, the same emotional outcomes, not because you're broken, but because your frequency is looping. It's replaying a track that was never resolved. But here's the miracle. The moment you become aware of the pattern, you begin to loosen it. When you feel the emotion behind it, not analyze it, not fix it, but feel it, you begin to neutralize its power, because emotion is energy, and energy, when felt fully, transforms. There's a difference between reliving and releasing. Reliving keeps the frequency alive. Releasing frees it from the system. And release doesn't come through force. It comes through presence, through witnessing the child within you, not with judgment but with compassion. When you give space to what was never allowed before, the grief, the fear, the longing, you send a new signal, one that says, it's safe to feel. And when the subconscious registers safety, it opens, it softens, it listens. This is where reprogramming becomes possible, not through fighting the old, but by introducing the new with coherence, consistency, and compassion. This is where the journal becomes sacred, not to track performance, but to trace energy, to notice the patterns, the emotional signatures, the beliefs that still live under your skin, and to meet them with new language, with new frequency, with love. This is also where guided reprogramming enters, not to overwrite forcefully, but to create new pathways, Gentle, repeated reminders to your subconscious that the war is over, that the future can be different, that abundance can feel like home, that love doesn't mean losing yourself, because when the subconscious feels safe in a new vibration, it adopts it. It doesn't resist it, it supports it. It begins to broadcast it on its own, and that's when life stops repeating. That's when reality starts responding differently. Not because the world changed, but because your vibration did. Why doesn't it work? You read the books, you said the affirmations, you created the vision board, you stayed positive, you did everything they said would manifest a new life. So why do the same patterns return? Why do opportunities dissolve? Why does it feel like you're stuck in a loop despite all your efforts? Because manifestation doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are. And what you are is not defined by your conscious intentions, it's defined by your subconscious frequency. This is the truth most people avoid. Positive thinking alone doesn't rewire a system built on survival. You can say, I am abundant 1,000 times a day, but if your nervous system still flinches at the idea of having more, that flinch wins. Energy is honest. It doesn't perform. It doesn't pretend. It reveals. And what your field reveals is not your surface. It's your core. This is why so many spiritual seekers become frustrated. They understand the principles, they believe in the universe, they know they are creators, but they're still creating from the same base frequency, one rooted in fear, doubt, guilt, unworthiness. They're trying to plant new seeds in soil that was never turned. They're speaking new truths into a system that's still vibrating with old pain. And the subconscious doesn't respond to words. It responds to vibration. Every belief you hold emits a frequency. That frequency interacts with the field, and the field responds. Neutrally, precisely, consistently. Not to punish, not to test, but to reflect. The field is a mirror. It amplifies what's already there. So when you try to manifest from the surface, from want, from effort, from force, you create short circuits, temporary results, or no results at all, because you haven't changed the code underneath. You're speaking one frequency but broadcasting another. That's why it feels like something blocks you. It's not sabotage. It's incoherence. The signal is split. You say yes, but you vibrate no. You imagine success, but you feel fear. You write goals, but you carry shame. And the subconscious always wins the vote. The subconscious is like the operating system. The conscious mind is the open app. You can change the interface, but the system will keep defaulting to its original programming unless you update the core. And that update doesn't come from information. It comes from integration, from bringing your vibration into coherence with your vision, from feeling safe in the reality you want, not just wanting it. That means addressing the parts of you that don't yet believe, that don't yet trust, that still associate success with loss, or visibility with danger, or love with abandonment. These parts are not broken. They're protective, but they're using old data. So the question is not, why am I blocked? The real question is, what part of me doesn't feel safe receiving this? And deeper, what frequency am I still emitting that attracts the familiar instead of the aligned? This is why shadow work, inner child healing, and subconscious reprogramming are not extra steps. They are the work, because manifestation is not about pulling something in. It's about aligning with what's already there and removing the static. It's about clearing the interference, the contradictions, the double signals. It's about tuning fully to the life you want, not just mentally, but emotionally, energetically, cellularly. And that tuning begins when you stop blaming the outside and start listening to the inside. When you realize the field is not testing you, it's mirroring you. And when the mirror shows you something uncomfortable, it's not a punishment, it's a pointer. It's an invitation to feel, to shift, to realign. Because when your vibration is clear, when your desire, your belief, and your nervous system are all on the same channel, manifestation doesn't require effort. It becomes a response. Natural, immediate, magnetic. This is not magic. This is resonance. And you don't create resonance through willpower. You create it through frequency, through embodied truth, through vibrational coherence. That's what we'll explore next. How to shift the frequency beneath your patterns. How to rewire the subconscious not through control, but through presence. Because your reality isn't waiting for you to try harder. It's waiting for you to resonate differently. To shift the frequency, you must speak the language of the subconscious. And that language is not verbal. It's vibrational. The subconscious doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to how you feel, to what you repeat, to what you believe. Without question, and most of all to what feels familiar. So how do you create a new familiar? Not by forcing it, not by fighting the old, but by immersing the subconscious in a new energetic reality, over and over until the new becomes the baseline. Reprogramming begins with coherence, emotional coherence, nervous system coherence, frequency coherence. It begins when your body, your mind, and your energy are all telling the same story, and that story must be felt, not just imagined, because the subconscious doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly felt. To it, a powerful visualization paired with emotion is reality. That's why visualization is more than daydreaming. It's vibrational rehearsal. When done with full presence, it teaches the subconscious what to expect, what to allow, what to believe is safe. So close your eyes, breathe, and instead of imagining what you want, imagine what it would feel like if it were already normal. Imagine walking through a day where abundance is natural, where love is constant, where peace is your default. Let yourself feel the details, the ease in your chest, the smile on your face, the calm in your breath, the simplicity of being in alignment. That's not fantasy, that's frequency, and frequency imprints. But repetition is the key. One visualization will not undo years of patterning. The subconscious learns through cycles. Just like the body, just like nature, it needs rhythm, repetition, consistency. That's where tools like the MYL journal come in, not as tasks, but as portals, as invitations to return to the frequency you want to live in. Writing is vibration. Your pen is an extension of your nervous system. Every word carries energy. Every sentence builds momentum. When you write, "I am safe in abundance," while feeling it, you're not scripting, you're tuning. And when you do it daily, you create coherence. You create recognition. In the subconscious, and with recognition comes acceptance. With acceptance comes support. The same is true for guided reprogramming. Listening to vibrational affirmations while your brain is in theta or delta, the same states where original beliefs were formed, opens the door. It softens resistance, it allows entry. But reprogramming isn't passive, it's relational. It's not about controlling the subconscious. It's about partnering with it, listening to it, speaking to it in the only language it trusts, feeling. That means learning to feel differently, practicing elevated emotions like gratitude, compassion, joy, not only when things go well, but especially when they don't, because that's when the field listens most closely. Your emotional baseline is your vibrational home, and if you want a different reality, you must build a new home inside your nervous system. That begins with choosing new default states, not just when you're inspired, but when you're triggered. When fear arises, can you respond with curiosity? When shame whispers, can you choose gentleness? When scarcity shows up, can you still affirm, "I am supported," not to escape, but to recalibrate? This is where transformation becomes exponential, not because you forced change, but because you became fluent in your own vibration. And you taught your subconscious that safety doesn't only exist in the old pattern, it can be found in the new one too. Over time, the signal shifts. Your field stops sending mixed messages. The mirror stops reflecting contradictions, and the universe begins responding to your new resonance, not as a test, but as a partnership. Reprogramming is not a technique. It's a lifestyle of vibrational responsibility. It's choosing to be the composer of your inner frequency, not once, but repeatedly, until the sound becomes music, until the field recognizes your song and sings it back to you. Just when things begin to shift, the field tests your frequency, not as punishment, not as a challenge, but as confirmation. The moment you start to emit a new signal, the universe listens. And before it reorganizes, it asks, "Are you sure?" This is the part most people misread. They begin to feel better, more aligned, more open, and then something happens. An unexpected bill. A relationship ends. A project collapses. And they think, "I must be doing something wrong." But what if that moment is not a setback, but a vibrational checkpoint? What if it's not rejection, but refinement? Because every time you shift your frequency, the field must realign. That realignment includes a shedding of people, patterns, identities, opportunities that matched your old signal, not out of cruelty, but coherence. This is the law of resonance. When your inner field changes, your outer world must catch up. And sometimes that catching up looks like falling apart. Sometimes it looks like delay. Sometimes it looks like silence. But underneath it all, there's a question being asked. Will you keep the new frequency, even when it's not yet reflected outside? Will you hold the vibration, even when the evidence disappears? Will you trust the shift, even as the old collapses? This is the test, not from a punitive universe, but from a precise one, a responsive one, a vibrational one. It's not testing your worth, it's asking for alignment, because you can't create a new reality while still being emotionally dependent on the old. 1. You can't become the new version of yourself while still reacting as the previous one. So when the field brings discomfort after expansion, don't shrink. Don't question your path. Recognize the pattern. Old frequency being purged, static being cleared, space being made. This is where nervous system regulation becomes sacred, where breathing, grounding, resting, not as escapes but as recalibrations, become your tools, because the subconscious remembers your response. And when you stay regulated during uncertainty, it receives a new imprint. It's safe to remain expanded. That's the new code. That's the true reprogramming. Not just when things are good, but when things are uncertain. When you're in the void, when nothing has manifested yet, but your energy says, I already am. The void is not empty. It's full of potential, but it requires vibrational congruence. It listens for coherence. And when you hold your new frequency long enough, the field shifts. Not randomly, but in response. This is why the journey can feel lonely at times, because you're vibrating ahead of your current environment. And that's okay. That's natural. That's the space between signals, where the new is forming. During this phase, use your tools. Journal your new identity. Visualize from it. Breathe into it. Surround yourself with frequencies, music, words, people that echo your chosen signal. And when doubt comes, don't resist it. Witness it. Hold it. Remind yourself, this feeling is old, this frequency is familiar, but I am choosing a new one now. Because every time you choose the new vibration in the face of the old reaction, you anchor it. You train the field, you teach your subconscious, and you tell the universe, this is who I am now. Eventually, the field stops asking, it starts responding. The delay becomes shorter, the alignment becomes smoother, the tests become subtler, because the vibration is no longer new. It's normalized, and that's when reality begins to move faster. That's when synchronicities accelerate. That's when life stops feeling random and starts feeling orchestrated. Not because you mastered the law, but because you became the frequency. Not once, but consistently, especially in the silence, especially in the wait. This is the bridge between intention and manifestation, energetic endurance. And once you master it, you don't just shift timelines. You shift identities, you shift fields. You become the quantum confirmation of your own desire. The signal has been sent, not once, but continuously. Not in words, but in waves. Not by what you think, but by what you feel when no one is watching. The question is not if you're manifesting. You are. The question is, what are you broadcasting? Reality is not neutral. It is precise. It is listening. It is responding to the transmission beneath your personality, beneath your goals, beneath even your voice. It is responding to your frequency, and your frequency is shaped by the stories you carry, the emotions you suppress, the beliefs you inherited and never questioned, until now, because something in you already knew, something quiet, something sacred, something that's not impressed by techniques or timelines but attuned to truth. And the truth is this: you were never meant to fight for your manifestations. You were meant to remember them, to realign with them, to resonate with them. You don't have to become someone else. You only have to release the interference, the static of the past, the weight of programming that was never yours to begin with. Because the real you, the core signal, is already whole, already magnetic, already aligned with everything you're seeking, not as a future possibility, but as a present frequency. The universe is not a vending machine. It's a mirror, and the clearer your frequency becomes, the clearer the reflection. The less effort required, the more flow received. So what now? Now you practice, you refine, you listen. You begin your days not by chasing outcomes, but by tuning your field. You choose emotional coherence over intellectual control. You breathe through the doubt. You write from your higher timeline. You speak to your subconscious with kindness, and you remember the field does not require perfection. It requires resonance. You're allowed to feel fear and return to trust. You're allowed to fall and rise in coherence. You're allowed to be both human and vibrational. That's what makes you powerful. This is not about bypassing the dark. It's about becoming luminous enough to carry it with grace, to feel it fully, to dissolve it in presence, and to emit something new, not just for yourself, but for the collective, because your signal doesn't end with you. It ripples, it entangles, it elevates. Every time you choose expansion over contraction, you shift the grid, you upgrade the field, you become the invitation for others to do the same. You don't need to convince the universe anymore. You've remembered your place in it, and from this place of embodied truth, of calm resonance, of deep coherence, creation becomes inevitable. So ask yourself gently, what frequency am I living from right now? And if the answer isn't what you desire, you don't need to panic, you only need to tune. Tune through breath, tune through gratitude, tune through presence, because the field is already listening, the response is already forming, the reflection is already returning, and the life you've seen in glimpses, the one that felt too beautiful to hold, is not waiting in the distance. It's vibrating at a frequency you now know how to claim.